delighted today to be joined by Jan Peters. Jan, welcome.
Hi, Peter. Really good to be with you.
Yeah, fantastic. Looking forward to this. First and foremost, take me way back. Let's start. Give us a rundown of your career to date.
Goodness me. Well, started a long time ago. I hope you're sitting comfortably. So when I was 18, I wanted to be a science journalist, and it wasn't really a thing back in the 80s. And so my careers advisor just said, do chemistry and pick a subject you like. So I literally stuck a pin in the ACCA handbook and ended up doing chemistry with oceanography. And that was also suggested by the computer program. But anyway, roll forwards and discovered that science journalism wasn't quite the thing, because I felt I didn't know enough to write about anything, missing the point of journalism. And I discovered that what I was really fascinated in was the why things worked, and that deep level, and about tiny things. And I ended up doing material science, which took me into the world of semiconductor technology, and a PhD doing research into making solar cells work on satellites. Obviously, it made a big difference in terms of if you could make them more robust. They're obviously incredibly expensive to put in space. So I ended up working in the semiconductor industry. I had this fantastic job working in a manufacturing environment, bringing technology in from university research departments, getting it into production. And then part of my job was taking it onto customer site and unwrapping it with them. It was like Christmas every month. And it was really brilliant seeing something come from a bunch of electronics and wires and transformed into this really sleek piece of really high-tech kit that did this amazing stuff to check on the quality of the semiconductors that were coming off production lines that were then made into all sorts of devices. So I really loved the whole environment of being involved in creating something new, working with customers across the world, and I never complain about a bit of travel. But I then moved into the public sector to commercialise science from public sector research labs, and then got sent on a secondment. And the chief exec said, "Oh, it's really good to get some experience in London." So I went to the Department for Trade and Industry, and it ended up staying there for 3.5 years. And so I kind of ended up doing a number of different jobs that I might never have known about, just through opportunities that came my way. I really enjoyed working in a policy environment, looking at how you could shift the direction of industry or organisations. And I really loved that creativity and the opportunity to work with so many different people. And that's been a thread through the whole of my career. And it was around 2004 that I was looking for something that meant I could live down by the coast, but I had a kid by then, and then two. And so working remotely seemed like a really good option. And so I set my business up, Catalytic, and intending to do commercializing technology. But I've been doing quite a lot of work in the Department for Trade and Industry around the workforce and getting more women into science and engineering. And when I went for this comment, I said to my boss after a few weeks, what do you want me to do? And when you're here for maternity cover, he said, just keep it ticking over. And I said, I think you've got the wrong person for the job. He just looked at me, sat back in his chair and went, what would you like to do? And so I said, we're never going to change anything by making posters and videos. I said, I want to put a strategic plan together. I want to look at what we really need to do to make a difference. And he said he got nothing to lose. So he just, go on then, just do that. So what I set about doing was, what could we do in the UK to transform the landscape for women in science and engineering? And that's I ended up being asked, could I do this and could I do that? Which is by then through my business. And that's how I've ended up being this sort of change agent, catalyst, bringing together my knowledge of different sectors, and this kind of sense of what can we do? We can always make changes and we need to evolve, but it's really about trying to get people together. It's been challenging realizing how long it takes to change mindsets, but we're getting there.
Absolutely fascinating. One part of your career, president of Women's Engineering Society. What was your time like doing that? Clearly close to, a lot of what your career focuses on now.
Yeah, very interesting. Not something I'd ever expected to do, and it wasn't on my horizon at all. I'd been asked to go and join the council. I'd been a student member and enjoyed the opportunity to see how committees ran as a sort of 20-something-year-old, and learned and observed and connected with some really senior women at the time. But when I was asked to join council, they were writing a business plan and wanted to move the society forward, and they wanted some strategic thinking. And so I went in, I helped them to sort of look at what it was that we really wanted to do, what was the mission, how are we really going to do it, how can we move from existing to exist almost, and really step up and become a force for change. So being president wasn't something that I planned or expected. It was just kind of happened. And it was working with some amazing women at the time, people who could see that there were no women owners of technology companies. There were women in senior positions, but nobody was talking to them. So we started doing a series of conversations with them. What is it like? What's your experience? How can we make a difference? But also had started at the beginning, before I was president, with looking at questions of how can we change cultures? And that's when the sort of a question popped up on a chat group around safety clothing. And it was, why can't people get boots that fit? So we created a group of people who started looking at what we were just looking at safety boots to start with, and how they didn't fit people who got women with size 9 feet, because quite often women with size 9 feet have got very slender feet, not large wide feet, and that equates to the same length as a man's size 8, but the size 8 man's boot doesn't fit. And when somebody who was a director of the HS2 project said, was she at Olympic Park at the time, she said the best thing she carried around in her briefcase was two pairs of walking socks. It's that understanding by talking to psychologists and people who do research into ergonomics, that you don't hit your head until you're wearing a big hat. So you don't hurt yourself till your safety boots are too big, because you don't remember where the edges are, and if they're different every time you go to site. So that was the point at which we started realizing we could make a difference by doing research, and then from it being just volunteers, just women taking time out of their lives to make a difference, we needed to transition to having a paid workforce who were professionals who could dedicate all their thought to all the different things that needed to be done to build a workplace that was inclusive for all sorts of different sectors of industry. So it was working with lots of different people who brought different mindsets together, and starting the society on this transition place to really shift the organisation, which is growing into a very different beast than it was today, and it had been around since 1919.
Really interesting talking about boots, weirdly enough, but it's almost those psychological nudges, isn't it? The boots don't fit, so you don't belong, and it's not meant like that, but kind of get that feeling you have to fit into those boots rather than have boots that fit you. Quite a decent analogy.
You're spot on. And when we did the survey, and somebody said, I was telling someone about it the other way, and they said, who funded it? I said, who funded it? We did it in our spare time. And when you ask what was it like working, being president, it was a lot of conference calls after the kids had gone to bed, 9 to midnight, writing documents, drafting surveys, sharing them with other people, and going to bed at midnight and realizing the heating had gone off and your feet were freezing cold. And so it was burning the midnight oil, basically.
Yeah.
But a couple of the comments that came through the survey was, my PPE only fitted when I was pregnant. The jacket, where it would only go round. But there were people saying, I felt like I was wearing my dad's jacket when I was 6, dressing up in the halls, shuffling around. I didn't feel like a professional woman. I didn't feel like I fitted. And I know that men have come in all sorts of shapes and sizes too, but there's some specific things for women body shapes that make it really difficult. People's stories where I need to get my pen out on site, but when I'm wearing my donkey jacket that will do up around my hips, the shoulders are way too big. So I've got the cuffs rolled up 3 times. I can't get my hand in my briefcase to get my pen out. So the kit was really compromising people's ability to do their jobs, compromising their professionalism. So
yeah, I think. So, sorry, that's the key, isn't it? Compromising their professionalism. You can't do a job because of something that's an object. It's just wrong.
Yeah, just wrong.
So just moving forward, can you talk us briefly through let me get this right, STEM-funded Set to Lead project, which has been going on for about 12 years now, I think.
Well, the project is finished. It was part of the UK Higher Education Funding Council campaign to really transform how we were teaching science, engineering, technology, engineering, and maths in universities. And so I was involved in a conversation around the fact that there weren't many programs looking at the issue of women in engineering as undergraduates. And I put a proposal together and went to talk to UCL Engineering up in London. And we did a pilot piece of action research. And we did a big survey. We had over 4,500 undergraduate students responded, which is huge. You know, the population at the time was about 30,000 students, and we were asking them, men and women students, you know, same questions. And occasionally there was a couple of people who got annoyed because, oh, this is a survey about women. We were trying to understand what their experiences were like, and what we ended up doing was looking at the key question for that piece of work was, why do fewer women transition into engineering technical jobs compared to their male colleagues? And so we might be getting 15-16% of women at undergraduate level, but if they're falling off immediately, and where are they going to? What are the things that we need to do to change? What is it that's changing their minds? And there was a perception that they didn't feel like they fitted within their course, but they were doing really well. They were getting more first-class degrees than their male counterparts. We went to industry and said, is it your fault? We went to the academics who said, is it your fault? And we kind of came up with a few ideas, and we wanted to test whether we could put role models into the mix. We could have women engineers not being there and specifically as the women engineers, but just talking about, I'm a woman in a technical environment, I'm talking about problems that we face in the job that I do, because it was changing the perceptions of the jobs that women did in the minds of male and female students. And we also introduced a sort of thread in the pilots that we did, which introduced team working and conversations around self-awareness. And this came from one of the partners, which was Microsoft, and the head of the Great Leaders Program, Helen Dogood, who introduced the Clifton Strengths tool into the project. And I stayed on with UCL, and we took that learning from that program and embedded it into the integrated engineering program, which is problem-based learning, real life situations which thread inclusion into the taught content of student projects. But it's not just about the content of the design and the design thinking and critical thinking. It's also, how do you connect and communicate with your colleagues? So what we wanted to try and do was build inclusion into that space of, you know, some people on a team might be really quick, creative thinkers that are ideas. Other people are much deep, detailed or reflective thinkers that really enjoy collecting knowledge and information and are just a mine of amazing knowledge. How can we help extract that? Well, if you just have this polarized project team where you've got these quick thinkers, let's get started, let's do it, we know what to do, let's we lose the amazing contribution of the students that are in the team that are going, interesting, but what about this? Oh, I was reading that the other week. Oh, I saw that. So it's helping to replicate the real life situation where you have huge diversity of people. When you start honouring the different characteristics that people bring to the project, you're able to start thinking about, what do you need or what do other people need to be their best? So some of us need freedom to express our ideas and get to know people in a great detail. Other people need time to absorb information because they think about it, or they'll go and find more facts, or they can ask amazingly deep sometimes annoying, but really deep, great questions, which really stretch the boundaries. And building that environment into undergraduate experience really enriches that learning that the students gain through their undergraduate program. So when they go into the workplace, they're much more mature in terms of self-awareness.
I can imagine that's a really positive thing to do, and to understand that everybody's different, but that collaboration when you come together. You mentioned, or what I'm getting is that change has been fundamental throughout your entire career. So now you own the company Catalytic. What changes have you seen in diversity and equality through that?
I think over the time, I've seen quite a lot of change. Fairly early pieces of work that I did was a piece with the Equality and Human Rights Commission, looking at diversity in the construction sector. And one of the when I do pieces of work, one of the things that my business brings, and one of the lady that I work with on that project called it the catalytic magic. And I said, what do you mean the catalytic magic? She said, oh, Jan, come on. You bring this so what factor. You bring this, you take the information and you go, what can we do with it? Where can we go? What's going to make a difference? And the other thing in the construction sector, when we did the focus groups, we noticed that we brought all sorts of different people in, that we didn't label it as a diversity project, or the project wasn't about diversity, it was about future skills. And because we put it out in a different way, we got all sorts of amazing individuals came forward to take part in the focus groups, really junior, really senior, all sorts of different roles on site. But one of the things that when we did add in questions around diversity, we got this eye rolling. And what we sort of evolved it and added some other questions into the discussion groups. And we talked around what people understood about the needs in the landscape. And there was a couple of brilliant characters involved in the groups. And we talked about fairness, and we distilled diversity down to respect. And that was the space that catalyzed the use of that fairness, inclusion, and respect. It was not talking about creating this obfuscation through this diversity language. It was taking language of what we wanted to achieve into real words that people could connect with immediately. People get respect at a really fundamental personal level. And one of the challenges I've seen over diversity over the years is this growth in what has become really quite a big profession, doing some amazing things and really stretching the boundaries. And in particular, in the last 5 or 6 years, really understanding cultures and culture change and things that we needed to do. But we've created this profession with its own language, and it's almost got its own silos, and it feels sometimes disconnected from the world in which it's trying to effect change. So my passion is around catalyzing change by giving people let's call it, use another word from the area, the agency, so that you can be an agent of change yourself. We can all create the culture in which we want to participate. We can shape it. But one of the challenges that we need to really embrace now is being able to do it in our own terms. And until we understand what it means to me and how I can make a difference, I can't do that on my own until I look through the eyes of somebody else. And I think a lot of the Black Lives Matter, for some people, it's made a difference by changing the conversation. But for other people, they're feeling diversity fatigue. And I think that is I find it a bit exasperating, a bit wearying when I hear and read about diversity fatigue. But let's change the word. Let's go back to what is it we're trying to do? We're trying to create a workplace where everybody can be their best. And everybody can only be their best if each of us enables, empowers, allows other people to be their best. And as a colleague, we can each do that. And it's not difficult, is it? To ask people different questions. How is it for you? What do you need to be your best? Oh, I need to think. I need to not be put into a box. I need to be able to own my own decisions. I need to own my own timelines and deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
I need to really believe in the project objective and the values of the organisation. So that's where I think we're beginning to move towards that. I think we really need to make that transition.
Yeah.
I think we've gone from, talking about equality. We're beginning to move where the Americans are in talking about equity, which is about equity of like the real outcome for people. So it's about equal pay, but not everybody is focused on pay. It's about getting your own personal reward from the work that you're doing. And I think I'm hoping that we're really on that next wave.
From what I'm understanding, it sounds very much a case of ask those questions and understand that I like the idea of well, what is the reward, rather than what is the pay. What is your reward for doing a particular thing? Because, like you say, it's not all about the pay. It's not all about the salary. There's a whole host of things, and everybody's different, and therein lies the whole thesis. Really, everybody's different.
Absolutely. And one of the I wrote a manifesto for targeting engineering about what it is we need to do to change. And a lot of the sort of academic community have hidden behind meritocracy. Oh, we only appoint the best people. We peer review so we get the best. And of course, that's where our unconscious bias comes into it. But just talking and doing unconscious bias training is not going to make that any difference. And it feels like you're sort of doing the Kenny Everett, the big old oversized hammer over the head, unconscious bias, beat it out of everybody. So I then have created my catalytic methodology, which is about, it's like, let's rise together. So I can help you figure out what it is you need to do. And then I know to help you internalize it about, so it is important to me and relevant to my job and my role and my function. So what can I do about it? I can learn to do this, I can learn to do that. And then it's around the organizational strategizing about the things. I could do all of these different things. I need to choose which order to do them in, which are going to have the biggest impact, which are the most important. And then we need to create energy around it to make things happen so we can empower other people to do that. And so I called it Rise because it's about let's everybody rise up to make that difference. And it's about not having a more diverse workforce in any sector. It's not about taking opportunity and power and outcomes away from the majority, the white men. It's about everybody working together to raise the quality of the work that we're doing in any aspect of the construction sector and engineering. It's about everybody lifting everybody else up and lifting the impact of the work that we do up.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's wrap things up, look to the future. What's on your agenda now?
So one of the things I'm working on at the moment is helping to work with a project in America, which is looking at the role that professional societies have to catalyze change. Because the professional societies are the kind of like guardians, if you like, of the standards and the ethics within lots of different sectors. I mean, you just look across the professional societies in the UK, we've got so many of them. We are guardians of the standards in terms of getting chartered and the standards we set there, but also the standards that are then taught in universities. And one of the things I'm really pushing hard for at the moment is that understanding how in the university sector we can improve students' self-awareness, we can improve their capability of working effectively in teams so they can work better with their colleagues. And when they move into industry, I want the employers to be able to not beat out of them the new thinking and learning from undergraduate or from graduates. I want them to listen and embrace that learning so that it becomes part of that culture. Somebody mentioned to me, I was doing an interview with them a few weeks ago, and she said, "Oh, Jan, it'll only take 6 months to beat that kind of thinking out of new graduates by the engineering manager." So we have to not just create these graduates with these skills and capabilities to communicate better. We have to empower the managers that then employ these graduates to embrace this thinking about enabling people aged workforces that really value individuals for what they bring by giving them what they need to be their best.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with that enough, to be fair, in that I don't think we do enough from that academia to workplace environment and that transition, and the healthy mixture of understanding the foundational knowledge and academic writing, but to put it actually in practice and to do your role that you might want to do in future life. I don't think there's enough to do that transition in most cases.
I think there are some universities doing amazing work in helping the students to become their best, and others are still trying to understand what it is they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think to some extent some students don't see the value in, and it's because we tend to refer to these communication skills as soft skills, but they're not. They're the shift skills, the things that make that difference. The difference between being a good engineer and a great engineer, a great manager, a good manager and a great manager, and an amazing leader. The thing that makes people great leaders are people who listen, but people who intrinsically know what it is that makes them amazing. And it empowers them. You look across amazing people that have risen above the rest of the world. You might look at Mother Teresa, you might look at the Richard Branson, you might look at Nelson Mandela. They knew what they gave to the world. And it wasn't always what was the immediately obvious, but sometimes it was they knew their value. And I think helping people know their value means that we start each learning to value ourselves better. And if that doesn't make us happier, I really think it will.
Yeah. Jan, I think that's a great way to end the conversation. Thank you for adding your value. Seamless, isn't it? Thank you for adding your value today and throughout your whole career into the construction industry and I suppose wider community as well. So kudos to yourself and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to join you, and thank you for the recognition and the acknowledgement. Appreciate it.
Fantastic.